going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our pseudo-weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And this time we are back for more Streets of New Capenna story reviews, specifically side story number 4. They're not technically numbered, but it's the 4th of 5 side stories, called The Family Man by K. Arsenal Rivera, which is really cool to see that she has come back since her run on Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow stories. It's nice to see her back for side stories, and it's nice that we see that, I mean, not that this, I guess, is a surprise, but it's nice to see that artists who have done, even full runs of stories can come back for side stories just to be like, hey, people really enjoyed your stuff, come on back. So, really nice to see that. My quick review at the top of this one is that I enjoyed this story quite a bit. I thought that there were a good number of twists and turns. There was a little bit of emotion in there. You really were invested in the character. So I enjoyed this one. I think it's worth your time reading it.
I think this one was hella fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So, hey, that's a very quick review. I like it. Much quick. Wow, okay.
Yeah, way quicker than any of my other quick reviews.
Or any of mine. So, yes, if any of that sounds interesting to you, we try to remove as many barriers as possible for you folks being able to see that if that's what you would like. So, the top link in the description down below will take you to this story. If you have not read it for yourself and you're interested in doing so, or if you read it a while ago and you want to remind yourself, maybe you didn't think it was fun, but maybe it could be. So feel free to go check that out. And of course, if you do that, we would of course love it if you would then come back here and join us and join in on the discussion. But otherwise, we'll be doing our best to give kind of the rundown of what's going on here. Before we get into that rundown that I just mentioned, quick reminder of while you're here on this channel. First of all, hi, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Please don't forget, while you are on any of our channels, because we have other channels as well, links down in the description box below, underneath that top link to this story. Don't forget on any of our channels to subscribe and ring that bell, and then you will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, or if you're on this channel, whenever we go live, which will be every Monday and Friday, right here on this channel from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Mondays, if you're a fan of Magic the Gathering, we play MTG Arena. Almost exclusively, we play limited, whatever the newest limited set or limited release is. It's not always, but it's almost always. And so you should definitely come join us. We would love to have you hang out, because most of the time we're not talking about Magic. We're playing it, but we're not really talking about it. We'll chat about gameplay and stuff if that's what people want. And then on Fridays, we just started this past Friday our first ever Nuzlocke, if you're familiar with what that is, of Pokemon Fire Red. So you haven't missed a ton, but you've missed some. And the VODs of those, the videos on demand, for those streams are on Video Games for All. Again, the first link to one of our channels in the description down below will take you to Video Games for All. And you can check out that VOD. And then, of course, we would love it if you would join us on Friday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern so that you can see the continuation of our journey. It's going well so far. Knock on wood.
Speaking of Video Games for All, Amy, why do you have weird pieces of hair drawn on your face?
So, something that we have been doing, I'm not going to steal your thunder, I want you to be able to describe it, but something that we've been doing is trying out some new and interesting thumbnail ideas for some of our Video Games for All things. And so, hey, if we're going to get dolled up for JaAR, and by we, I don't mean me, if we're going to get dolled up for JaAR, we might as well also get dolled up for some of those pictures for the thumbnails. So
I got all cosplayed up for the standard at this point cosplay thumbnails that we do every week for the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney series that we have on Video Games for All.
That's right. And so you are more than welcome if you'd like to take a guess in the comments down below as to which character Amy is playing, if you're familiar with the series. But otherwise, stay tuned to Video Games for All. You will see those thumbnails pop up every single Sunday. And by thumbnails, I mean there are videos attached to those thumbnails, so you should definitely go check those out as well. Because, hell, we really enjoyed playing through the game. So we hope you enjoy the playthrough. Some of you already have been, and thank you for doing so.
Yes. So we did those thumbnails, and I was like, well, we're gonna do JaAR, and it's for New Capenna, and I mean, it's pretty thematic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna, switch my jewelry up a tad bit and do JaAR like this.
Yeah.
So it works pretty well for New Capenna.
Yes. So definitely make sure that you, like I said, check that stuff out. That's pretty great. And if you're on any of our streams, let us know what you think of the thumbnails. We've had some discussions with folks about it, and they've really enjoyed it. So, okay, so on to the full review itself. We are here with Angelo, whom we've seen multiple times now in the main story. And so now he is here in a side story. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but in advance of the day of his daughter's wedding, which, if you're aware of that phrasing, we'll talk about that in a moment. The first thing I have written here as a note is a quote that you wanted me to write down about Toulouse. Those thick black brows of hers were the most expressive things in this part of town.
I just loved that so much. Oh my god.
Yeah, we find out that Errant, who is Angelo's daughter, which I was not aware of, so now I know. Errant, a rare card in the set. Angelo, a card in the Commander set, I believe, or the Commander release. And Toulouse, a rare card in the set, in the main set for Streets of New Capenna. But Errant is Angelo's daughter and is marrying Toulouse's daughter, who we find out is named Parness. We'll find that out later on. But I find it interesting because there was discussions of Toulouse saying, well, to Angelo, well, you're family, right? You're family now, or you're not quite family yet, or whatever. And I was...
So they're going to the Olive Garden.
They're not. But I found it interesting because Toulouse is from Obscura. She has the Obscura watermark at the bottom of her card. She is the Obscura colors, and Angelo is the Maestro's colors. Now, as many people know who have played Limited, if you tried to do a 4-color deck, some of the families share 2 of the 3 colors, and so then you can be a 4-color deck, or like mainly a 3-color deck splashing a 4th color for 1 or 2 cards in that like sister family, if you will, which is a very weird phrase or way to say that, but...
Sorry, my throat's very dry. Go ahead.
It's okay.
Just ignore it.
Sure, I was trying to. So the sister family, and that is what Obscura and the Maestros are. So, for example, Toulouse, interestingly, isn't even necessarily needed to splash. You could have Toulouse in a pure Maestro's deck without any white, which is the difference between the white for Toulouse or the red for Angelo / the Maestros. So, I guess either way, but for Toulouse specifically, you can cast Toulouse for blue, black, or blue. And either way, that goes in a Maestro's deck. So I found that very interesting that it was Toulouse who was here working with Angelo as a Maestro, because they could work together in terms of family, at least in terms of their colors. I found that very interesting. Okay. This is confused me a bit towards the end of the story, but then, I guess... Something I always find interesting is in media, movies, TV shows, whatever you want to call it, even books, stories, if a character is in a flashback, like is flashing back to something, and they're in a dangerous situation, I'm not worried that that character is going to die because they're in the present flashing back to that moment. Now, if it's a character who, let's say, has a permanent disability in the present, but doesn't in the past, it's possible that that flashback is where they gain that disability. Or if you're watching Lost, for example, spoilers, I suppose, for that very old show, you could have a character who you've seen many times who does not have a disability, who in the past did, and then lost it being on the island. No pun intended, I guess, for Lost. But, there are other ways around that. But I always found that interesting. And so for this story, it started in the beginning with Angelo talking multiple times about the woman in white and what she's been doing around the city. They've noticed this woman in white going around. And so I'm going, oh, okay, so it's Elspeth. So this is before Angelo meets Elspeth, because we know that Angelo meets Elspeth, introduces her, or like brings her in to the Maestro's, introduces her to Xander, etc. So he would not be confused about who this woman in white is.
Right.
And there is no other possibility for who this woman in white could be unless they're not telling us about like another character yet for some reason, which is not the case.
Silly at this point.
It's definitely Elspeth, and Angelo definitely hasn't met her yet. So later on in the story, when it looks like he's gonna die, he's not gonna die because he's there later to meet Elspeth. So like, because at first I'm like, oh wow, he's just dead here, right?
Right.
And then he's not.
I thought that too.
So did I, but that's why it was like, but we're in the past. Like, we know that he's in the present, and like, yeah, he's a vampire, but it was a bad time for him. And we saw that Fiyero was also a vampire, and that didn't end well for him. So, you know, very, very strange. But yeah, I was like, it kind of like takes the wind out of that reveals sails that he lives. Like, I guess it's interesting to see how he lives, and more importantly, I think, especially based on how the story ends, if he makes it to his daughter's wedding on time.
Right.
Because just because he exists in the present doesn't mean he makes it on time to the daughter's wedding. So maybe that is more what they were going for in terms of like the suspense, is like, how will he ever make it there on time, as opposed to will he survive and to live to the end of the story.
Yeah, there was about
yes,
15 times during the story where I was like, okay, he's dead. He's just gonna die now. Okay.
Yep.
But it was all about the journey. You know, it was all about what interesting things are going to happen along the way while he's, you know, sitting there with the top hat on singing, "Get me to the church," you know, and he got there, man.
He did.
It happened.
Thank God.
But at one point I was really pissed because I was like, she's a bitch. Because...
she being
Toulouse. Because Toulouse was like... all ready for this to have happened, right? She shows up, she's got the clean suit for him, she's got the, why do I keep forgetting it?
The healer.
The healer, and I'm like, okay, so she knew this crap was gonna happen, and then she's gonna swoop in and like save the day, but it's not really saving, because she's the one who caused it. But then they like went on to explain it away, to like say, you know, her motivations for doing that. Right. So, fine, I guess.
And so the next section here, when we were reading through this, I remembered, God, is it really a time where I have to explain what Moulin Rouge is? Because it was an old enough movie where there are people who are watching who might not know what it is.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
What?
This is written a certain way.
Okay, go ahead. I thought I was going to intro you a bit, so go for it. Do what you do.
So, yeah, I'll get to that. So, Erend is a street artist, and the Maestro's are big art collectors, obviously, and Erend is a Maestro, right? Did
we talk about the fact, sorry, very quickly, that Erend, who is the daughter of Angelo, is marrying Parness, who's the daughter of... Did I say this already?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that was clear.
We want to keep this stuff clear. And Erend is marrying Toulouse's daughter. So, now, there was a famous French artist who was post-impressionistic, but a lot of his art was also Art Deco, Art Nouveau, and it's Art Nouveau inspired, a lot of it too, which is, of course, very Capenna-y. He, whom Toulouse is probably a nod to here, is Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec. And he's well known by being the model for the character of Toulouse in the Broadway show / movie Moulin Rouge.
Yes.
So there you go.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, that's what... So I said that. I mentioned that. I was like, oh yeah, it's like Toulouse-Lautrec. The character, again, if I have to help explain this to folks, Moulin Rouge was a movie, which is how I was introduced to it, but as many people know, there are movies made of Broadway shows or of plays, however you want, musicals, whatever you want to refer to it as. And in the movie, Toulouse-Lautrec was played by John Leguizamo, who folks who may be younger and are not familiar with Moulin Rouge, and who maybe don't know the name John Leguizamo, he is Bruno from Encanto. That's the best way that I can tell you to remind you of who he is.
We don't talk about Bruno.
I know. Well, I'm talking about Bruno, so nix to that, John Leguizamo. He's also, if you're, geeky like us, he is Luigi in the live-action Super Mario Brothers movie. That classic film.
I'm not that geeky.
I am. But anyway, so I knew the name Toulouse, and every time I have seen that card, that character, etc., I have thought of Toulouse-Lautrec from the Moulin Rouge movie, and so I mentioned it to Amy tonight, and that got Amy to be able to look up all this stuff and find out all this information about Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec.
Yes. So I was like, okay, so there's a reason why this person is named Toulouse, because that's a French name, and let's be real, a majority of these people are probably going to be Italian. Giada, I mean, come on. Could it be a more Italian name? Anyway, so I was like, okay, there's something there. If he's like mentioning Toulouse was in Moulin Rouge, and I'm like, yeah, of course. And then I'm like, okay, let me look up the meaning of the name Toulouse. So I start to type it into Google, and it automatically comes up with Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I click on that, and it specifically says Art Nouveau artist, basically. So if you guys are familiar at all with the like bright yellow poster that says Moulin Rouge on it, it's like a picture of, it's like a painting of, it's a painting of the Moulin Rouge, but it's very yellow and sort of abstract with the people and stuff, but it's an Art Nouveau style. That is actually one of his paintings. And that was one that I got to see as I was looking this up, and I was like, okay, great. So I wrote down that little paragraph so we would be able to talk about it.
Sure. Now, you talked about this a bit, but I wrote down here, that job that, or maybe you touched on it briefly. When we first read about the job that Toulouse was offering to Angelo, you were very distrusting of it.
Oh, yeah. I was like, this is a setup. And yeah. And I never stopped thinking that. Even after Toulouse came and saved the day, because I was
Right.
like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to tell that you set this up, you wanted this to happen, you wanted him to almost lose his life, but you swoop in at the last minute, fix everything, and get him to the church on time, so that, I don't know, for
He's
kicks?
further indebted to you, I suppose.
Right.
I
don't know what the hell it's for.
I didn't fully understand. It wasn't particularly clear to me. So Angelo gets into a cab after committing a murder. We'll talk about the murder in a minute. But Angelo gets in a cab to go to his daughter's wedding. He's not super happy about the fact that he's got to get in a cab, but he sees one cabbie in a pristine cab that's beautiful, in a finely tailored suit, and he's like, that's the cab for me. Gets into the cab and goes off. Now, cab, the art that's shown for it is Mysterious Limousine. If you remember what that card does, it makes perfect sense. He's locked in the limo, he can't get out. Just like the limo exiles one of your opponent's creatures under the limo, and the limo doesn't open its door to bring somebody else in to lock them in and release the other passenger until it attacks again. And then even then, it's still a May. But regardless, That's what is shown. He gets into this cab, and then it's a guy who has a vendetta against him, him being Angelo here, that this guy's name is Severo. Posing as somebody named Antonio, but is a guy named Severo who Angelo killed Severo's father on Severo's birthday many years ago. Now, when Antonio reveals himself to be Severo, it's not confusing at all, don't worry. I remembered the name Severo from earlier in the story. Thank you, Control F. I was able to search Severo, get back to the top of it was the top of the story, where Errant, Angelo's daughter, mentions that Angelo is somewhat notorious for being late to things or missing things or whatever, like when he missed that one party of hers for that Severo guy. I assumed it was a throwaway line. Instead, it was a Chekhov's gun, and it was mentioned at the beginning, and then it went off by the end.
He wouldn't have been named if it was a throwaway line.
I guess. Good point.
So I knew it was going to be a Chekhov's gun, but I think by the time we got to it, I had forgotten about it.
Fair enough. Like I said, I remembered the name, and I was like, why do I remember that name? And I looked it up and like, there it is.
Yeah, the name rung a bell, but that's all it did. So. But
what I didn't fully understand was that, so Antonio / Severo is driving down this road, and at one point he turns, and from Angelo's perspective, he sees lights coming right at the front of the cab. Because it says that Severo turned towards oncoming traffic, or into oncoming traffic. And that Angelo kind of leaps forward to try to attack, and they get hit by another car or a riveteer's transport vehicle. Then the contents of the trunk of the cab contained some glass items that Angelo heard during the trip that turn out to be Halo that the real Antonio, whom Severo it was impersonating, was transporting for the riveteers. And so the riveteers, I guess, thought that Severo, but really Angelo, because that's who was outside of the cab at the time, was stealing those items from them. So does that mean that the riveteer transport vehicle hit them because they were chasing the cab with their items in it? Or was it pure happenstance, and then they step out of their transport vehicle because they just got hit, and then like, hey, there's our stuff, which would be the most convenient thing of all time. Yeah. But it seems like Severo purposefully turned onto that oncoming traffic lane. Did he do it because he knew that there was Halo in there, and he knew that there was going to be a riveteer's transport vehicle at that exact place at that exact moment? Because that sounds like a pile of bullshit to me. But
he kept adjusting his rearview mirror.
To look at him, though, to look at Angelo, to talk to him. Because how would adjusting your rearview mirror help if you're turning into oncoming traffic?
You're turning into oncoming traffic because you're being tailed.
I don't think so, because he was looking smugly at Angelo the whole time. And he wasn't being tailed. That wouldn't make sense. Turning into oncoming traffic doesn't mean pulling a U-turn and just turning around in the same lane. He made a turn onto a road where there was oncoming traffic.
Yes, you don't do that unless you're being tailed. Or if your GPS tells you to.
No, okay. Again, the way I read it, and this is why I'm asking the question.
Okay.
It made it seem like Severo purposefully turned onto a street with oncoming traffic to hurt Angelo. Not to get away from anyone, but because it would kill Angelo. He was like, well, here's this. Turned onto that road, and then Angelo attacked him, realizing, oh, crap, I gotta get the hell out of here, because I'm gonna die in this car accident.
Okay.
And then Severo is maniacally laughing as they're getting hit, because what he wanted was accomplished. They're getting hit by multiple cars, and Angelo's going to die. Severo is going to die as well, but it seems like he's okay with that. He's getting revenge for his father's death. It seemed like the next step there of after the car accident, the Riveteers are all there because their Halo is in the trunk was like the most convenient BS of all time. Like, how was it a Riveteer's transport vehicle? How did they know that as they got out of the car, oh, there's a Maestro with our stuff right there? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't know how that occurred, and it's very strange. It does not make sense.
Yeah, so what I thought, how I interpreted that was he turned into oncoming traffic because they were being tailed by the Riveteers, which he knew were there, but didn't mention to Angelo because why would he?
So then they got rear-ended while driving through oncoming traffic, is what you're saying.
They didn't get rear-ended. They got T-boned.
So they're driving down the road. Somebody is following them. The Riveteer's transport vehicle. They turn into oncoming traffic, or are you saying they made a left? So like they made a left and the transport vehicle turned and hit them this way? Because I just assumed they were making a right, ended up on a street with oncoming traffic. So then, by that logic, they would have to, the transport vehicle would follow them and rear-end them into oncoming traffic more?
I figured it like they turned into oncoming traffic, but since it was oncoming, there's not too much movement there. But it seemed like a lot of time passed. I
don't know about a lot of time, but enough time for
it not just to be them driving straight and into the side of the car.
For Severo to have said something to him after the turn, for Angelo to have leapt forward to try and attack with his knife, and then they get hit by the transport vehicle. It makes the positioning and everything makes no sense. Yeah. None at all. If you have a better idea of what it is, as always, that's what the comment section down below is for, is to let us know what you think of our analysis of things and our opinions.
What this reminds me of is like in the movies and stuff where they have like court cases and then they have like the board up and they're like, oh, let's see if the timelines match up, and they show like the cars and the road or whatever, and they're like trying to make sure that everybody's timeline actually coincides with one another.
I mean, I think it's very funny that you say in the movies and stuff, because that just happens. That's how courtrooms work. But again, if you're familiar with our Phoenix Wright playthrough, I am an attorney, and so we're going through the game together as like two people who've never experienced the game before. So yes, it's like it's not always the case in TV shows and movies, but that is actually true to life. That is super important.
Well, I've never seen it in person, so fair. I'm talking about having seen it in movies.
Totally fair. Okay, so I also liked the line of Angelo talking about getting in that cab, and he says, horror of horrors, taking a cab. Mm-hmm. Which is why he was so happy to take the one that Severo was driving, and Severo was wearing what he was wearing and had the vehicle he had because he was trying to entice Angelo.
Right.
But again, he would have needed to know that Angelo was not going to have have transportation to his daughter's wedding.
That's why I said it was a setup the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
Because Toulouse is the one who, like, made it happen.
Maybe. I said we would come back to talking about the murder. Angelo ends up murdering Fierro, who is the job that Toulouse gave Angelo, was to kill Fierro. And again, Angelo mentions this a couple of times. Angelo very well could have, like, walked up to where Fierro was, pulled him into an alley, stab, 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 you're dead, and left his body there. Instead, Angelo, being a member of the Maestro's, being someone that cares about art and collecting art, but obviously not in this particular instance, but cares about art and the art of the kill, because they are assassins as well, Angelo has this sick idea of what he's going to do. Yeah. He's going to take him into this particular spot in the museum. He's going to have him stand in a certain spot. He's going to drop an axe on the guy, a massive axe, while Fierro is admiring this awesome axe. This axe is going to fall on Fierro. It does, by the way. Severs Fierro's head, and the spurt of blood that comes out of, I guess, the neck stump.
Oh, say it like that.
What else is it? The spurt of blood that comes out lands in this area where Angelo carved into that area.
Yeah, like grooves to like catch the blood, I guess.
And the blood landed in those grooves to spell out death, I guess this way, death to traitors.
When they
So
originally
cool.
said that, like before they got to saying that it spelled anything, I was like, is he gonna drink it? Because he's a vampire, but like, can vampires drink vampire blood in this?
Not in,
I
in
don't
this,
know.
I don't know, yeah.
And I was like, is it like, why can't you just set a bowl down?
Yeah.
Instead of like grinding grooves into the floor. But again, I'm just really mad about fucking marks in that goddamn marble.
The marvel of the...
But,
Check out the last episode we did too. Well, you'll hear a lot more about that.
no, but
That's
yeah.
super funny.
But then because it spelled something, that actually made sense. So.
Yeah. But yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. But again, then Angelo talks about the fact that he so meticulously planned the murder and the aftermath of the murder that he didn't think of setting up a car for himself to take him to the wedding that he so desperately needed to get to, which...
He forgot the Uber.
Right. Which I have to say, I've been in that position before where you're like, this is a super important thing. I have to be done with this, and I need to be here on time. And then you don't plan the thing in between that like is super vital, and you're like, shit, what do I do? So like, I've been there, because otherwise I would say it's unrealistic. It's not unrealistic.
No.
I definitely understand where you're like, hyper-focused on one thing, hyper-focused on this other thing, and then the connector of like how you're going to get from point A to point B does not go through your head. You're just like, I need to be here, then I need to be here, and it's going to work out great. It doesn't work out great.
No.
But I still think it's super convenient because if it's not a setup, the fact that Severo knew to be there at that exact moment, which means he knew that the murder was going to happen at that moment, because otherwise Angelo almost certainly would have already been at the ceremony space with his daughter. Like, why the hell would he be dilly-dallying around there? Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Well,
and like
maybe
I said,
Severo actually pulled up a number of hours earlier. Maybe he had been waiting there for a long ass time. I mean, he was in front of the Maestro's building, so he just assumed that that's where Angelo would come out of. And, you know, that he would pick his car. So he just got there early enough where it would make sense for him to be there, even though he was actually there way later.
yeah.
It didn't matter because he just waited for him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I noted here that I was a little annoyed. A little bit annoyed. It might be nitpicky, and you can absolutely let me know if you think so, because I would love to hear from you. I think it was a little annoying that they used like 3 times in 3 different ways, mind you, but still 3 times they referenced the "on this the day of my daughter's wedding." 3 separate times. The first time was in the preview text under the like thumbnail of the story on the story page, where you click through and then you read it. At the beginning when Toulouse is talking to Angelo, she references it as well. Like, oh, on your daughter's wedding of all days or whatever. And finally, I think it was... Hold on, I have it written here. Yes, Angelo alludes to it to the cabbie and says, you know, well, not on today of all days. And it's like, come on, man. Like, I get that there's that line in that movie that's like very iconic of like, you come to me. I can't do it. I'm not going to try. But you come to me on this, the day of my daughter's wedding, and ask me for a favor and blah, blah, blah. And like, I get it. But also, it's a one-off gag. Let it be a one-off gag. Congrats, you did it. Let's move the hell on. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe it's nitpicky, but like 3 times, a little much.
I honestly, like, didn't pick up on it the second 2 times.
Okay.
I think my brain just, like, automatically threw it out as being not important.
Sure. Oh, and then I thought this was pretty funny. Angelo talks about the fact that vampires don't vomit.
Pretty cool.
I was surprised, unless it's referencing the fact that vampires don't eat. And then that would make sense because you would not have anything to vomit. So, yeah, if vampires don't, I mean, they drink blood. We know this, but otherwise, besides
That's
that...
drinking, not eating, really.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't go to your stomach. But I'm not, that's not me being insulting. I apologize if it came off that way. You're right. So, again, that's my only assumption is, like, if they don't eat, like, if they're not required to eat as immortals, like, once they become immortal vampires, then maybe... But yeah, they don't vomit. Congrats, I guess. It seems like an interesting power, ability. I don't really know what to call it.
Okay.
And then, last but not least...
But it still seemed like, motion sickness is a thing. You just don't actually throw up from it.
Yeah, well, because he said if he was immortal, he would have... If he was a mortal, sorry. It sounds like immortal when I say it quickly like that. If he was a mortal being... he would likely have vomited. But because he is immortal, he cannot. So, and so last but not least, he makes it.
Yeah.
Right on time. Again, thanks to Toulouse and the extra suit and the healer to help stitch up himself and not have blood all over him. Toulouse makes the save, stops all the riveteers, and gets not a drop of blood on her suit. Nice. Impressive.
Yeah.
Especially... for the Obscura, who, maybe I'm wrong, right? I mean, the Maestros are the assassins. The Obscura are spies. Spies aren't necessarily prolific fighters, right? I mean, some are, but in this particular instance, I guess I just didn't think of the Obscura that way in particular, and maybe it's just Toulouse, right? But...
she's a maestro.
She could be a maestro, yeah. Yeah, and maybe we'll find out more about that in the Planeswalker's Guide. They did make one. We will talk about it, but it will be in the order that all these things came out, so it will be after all these other... We do all the main stories, then we'll do the Planeswalker's Guide, and then we have other stuff to do after that. Don't worry about that. But we're not here yet because he makes it there, and then that ending is super emotional. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. It almost got me choked up, so, take that for what it's worth, I suppose, but reading that ending was, very sweet.
Yeah.
He finally made it. She was so excited to see him, even though she was there with all of her friends and stuff, so, that was a cool moment. I enjoyed reading it, and again, was pretty emotional.
Yeah, it was emotional for me, because at the end, I sat there and said, am I really, wishing that this fictional character who's a vampire and
an assassin
and in the mob is my dad right now, because it's a good moment.
Yes. And the final line of the story, which I wrote down because it was just so cool. Angelo thinking of or referencing his daughter on her wedding day in her gown, I suppose. I don't know that he specifically said it was a gown. Maybe he did, but
he said her mother's wedding gown.
That's right. Thank you. Yes. Because in her mother's wedding gown, looking just like she did, and it made him kind of take a second. Yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right. That the line that he used, or the line that the story uses, is no work of art could ever compare. And again, yes, agreed. But again, especially for the Maestros, right? Super important. And so I loved it. What a cool way to wrap up the story that was kind of hectic at points and thrilling at points. Again, both of us thought he was dead and yet knew that he wasn't because it was a flashback essentially, but still thought he was going to die. It's still, it was written that well that even though you knew that the references to the woman in white were Elspeth, which means he hadn't met her yet, which means it was in the past, you're still oh wow, this dude's gonna die. And it's I know he can't, but he's definitely gonna, so... Yeah,
I mean, I forgot what I was gonna say, so...
I'm sorry. What did it have to do with no work of art could ever compare?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, if you think of it before we're done here interrupt me and we can do it. Because I didn't have anything else to say necessarily because we were at the end. So, but I'll start talking about our closing and you can keep thinking about it, I suppose. So, hey everybody, as I mentioned earlier, please don't forget that we have this channel, we have other channels. Please don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell. You'll get those notifications for when a new video comes out, like more JaARs, when a new, we do have these pre-release kits. They're over here. I'm not going to pull one up, but we do have more openings that we're going to be showing eventually. We need to get through these stories because holy crap, I genuinely hate how Wizards chose to put these up. It's very frustrating and very annoying. It does a huge disservice, I think, to the people who want to read them. Like, here they all are. Consume them quickly because, you know, all we want out of them, it seems, is like one-off tweets about them with people's opinions and then move on because the next day you're going to have another one. Tweet about that one very quickly. Or apparently for Vorthos content creators, like a video every day, let's go, where is it? It's like, go to hell, I guess. I'm very upset about it. And maybe I'm the only one, and that's totally fair. If you're somebody that just was happy to be able to read a story every day, let me know. That's great. But for somebody who wants to like take the time and analyze them and have discussions about them, we're like so far past that point here. It's frustrating. So.
Yeah, I mean we've got other videos we're doing.
God forbid.
So we don't have time to do all the JaAR videos in 1 week.
Yep.
You know.
10 of them in a week and a half.
That's not possible.
No, who the hell's got that kind of time?
We've got other things to do.
Yeah. So anyway, that as I've said in the past about this particular topic, that is definitely an issue that is possibly specific only to us. And if that's the case, sure, that's fine. Like, it's inconveniencing us, and it would be very kind of ridiculous of me to say that they should change the way they're doing things because it inconveniences just us. But that's why I'm asking, what do you think of it? Like, if you're just reading the story for yourself, do you like the fact that there are 10 stories in 10 days or in 5 days or whatever, you know, however long it was? Like, it just, to me, it seems a little bit like they're like, here are the stories. You asked for them, so here they are.
Right.
You know, choke on them. And it's like, okay, I guess. I mean, people worked hard on these, right? Like, you care about them. Maybe give them time? No? Just one right after the other? Okay.
Care about them? I don't think they do.
No. Again, I think the people that wrote them care about them. Yes. I think care and planning goes into this. But I think then whoever's job it is to distribute them is just like, oh, right, the stories. All right, here's one. The next day, here's the other. And then the third, and then the fourth. All 10 of them are done. We can stop worrying about it. Let's move on to the other parts of our job that we care more about. That make us money.
Right.
Again, I'll get off my soapbox because that's very frustrating to me. But that is neither here nor there. We do have 3 videos a week coming out over on Video Games for All. We have Pokemon every Tuesday, not the Nuzlocke. Those are on Saturdays for VODs or live streamed on Friday, whichever you prefer. But we have Pokemon Sapphire, the 3rd generation of Pokemon. Amy is going through that game for the first time ever, seeing all the new Pokemon, facing all the gym leaders, etc. That's every Tuesday. Every Wednesday, Amy's first time ever through Final Fantasy VII. And as we mentioned, every Sunday are the new episodes, blind playthrough for both of us, of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney.
Yes.
So definitely go check that out. We highly encourage it. And thank you for doing so. Once a month, new videos over on Gluten Free for All. If you missed it a few weeks ago, Amy did an awesome one that I got to be a part of as well. So Thank you for having me. And Amy does a kick-ass job over there. So you should definitely check out those videos and subscribe and share them with folks who you know in your life who might need some assistance with finding proper gluten-free brands of foods to eat. Possibly lactose-free as well. Not every video, but most are lactose-free as well. Vegan sometimes too. So if you have people in your life that need those things, like I said, Amy does a kick-ass job. So definitely check that out. Gluten Free for All, links in the description.
Yeah, and ring the bell because the videos don't come out on exactly the same day every month, but I do one every month.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And if you have suggestions for things you want to see on that channel or any of our channels, technically, leave them in the comments. Come to our live streams and talk to us about them. Whatever you want, we would love to hear from you. But then most importantly for these particular shows, we want to hear your opinions on these stories. So if you have opinions on this story, on our analysis of things, something that you disagree with that we said, something that you agree with that we said, something that we missed, we want to hear from you in the comments down below, because helping us out and joining in on the conversation with us is a great way for all of you to join us as we show off our...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
That's right. So yeah, that is going to be the end of this particular episode. I really want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope, as I said, that we can keep the conversation going in the comments down below. That is what it is for. Likes and shares go a very long way, and we appreciate that. If you're liking the things that we do, the subscribing and ringing the bell helps as well, and we really do appreciate any and all support that you are willing to give for this channel and any of our other channels as well, down in the description below, as I said, or it'll be popping up here in just a second. But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.